almost halfway through day number 1 of the grand finals, day 2 with 6 more matches to be played out at a 1.5 times multiplier in terms of points. So these players have a long ways to go. I'm curious to see kind of these early game engagements. We saw QNDX Phantom taking kind of that, I don't want to say 50-50, but that quick off-spawn engagement. Predage and Radeon had a very strong game 1. Game 2 didn't quite go their way. They have maintained their spot in the top 10, but you know that they want to work their way back up.
Yeah, it's all about consistency overall. You don't need to win every game, but you definitely need to be placing in the top more times than not, which kind of leaves just a lot to those mental games as the day goes on, especially if you start off good, slowly fall down that leaderboard. As we head on over to Pleasant Piazza, 2 teams contesting throughout the day so far, Clown and Axe Force versus Hizik, his duo partner on the other side. And this has kind of been the thing. 2 players go towards the north and the west, the other 2 take the south and the east, and then from there, I think it all depends on the loot or any sneaky shots you might be able to get.
Oh, look at this. Is it a surprise contestation onto Merstash and Malabuka? Merstash was already taken down 1. They now have the upper hand in the 2 versus 1, but they're going to still choose to play it a bit safe here, recuperate their shield, their HP, before taking that final engagement on the solo that's currently up. But looking at the mini-map, yeah, it looks like he's going to try and disengage here.
Yeah, it's probably Cantry that did go down. You see it's Cryfos by himself. There are some other teams in the distance, but I think without anybody in the elimination feed, seeing Malabuka and Merstash go down, it's not a risk I would take, as Phantom and QNDX lean the contested fight back in their favor here. Game 3, they're up 2-1 in these off-spawn fights.
Good start for these players. Speaking about off-spawn fights, I also saw Seti go down. We talked about it previously. Cammy and Seti had never gotten or had 0 points after the first 2 matches in a final situation like this. However, if they go down yet again, Jacob, that could be 3 matches in a row. We can see kind of how Phantom and QNDX close this one out. Looking incredibly dominant. You said it yourself. Up against Kaido and Haijo.
A lot of these fights kind of like changing the tides, not even just a little bit, but like drastically, because 8th plays 42nd for Malabuka and Merstash. Most of that Malabuka playing out as a solo. Now with Merstash back into the game, they have the red line loot. So they have one of their greatest chance here in this game, especially with those 2 games going on. They've learned on the fly as Thomas getting a little bit more aggressive here in this game. And him and Queasy, they've been down on Surge this first couple games, forced to take fights like this later on in the game. So I'm glad to see them doing a little bit earlier, where it's, yeah, it might be just as risky, but less chance for those third parties.
Yeah, Surge problems no longer. Taking out Kaid and his duo is actually going to be huge for Thomas and Queasy. Hoping they get a bit more flexibility now to kind of plan their later rotations throughout the match. But the job's not finished. They still have a long ways to go to get enough damage. It has been lower in general than when the Slurp Cacti were in the game, but it's still incredibly difficult to get enough.
I can only imagine Cade just out of builds. It's like all or nothing in that situation. Ooh.
Oh. Thought you could hide,
maybe
Mariah.
they're both out of builds completely.
He's playing 0 build there against Queasy. As Vidil and Reason, looks like they're gonna be the ones dominating this fight as well, as they clean it up quite easily.
Reason Vidil over towards Sandy Steps. This is kind of where they've been landing most of this FNCS. Yeah, there was a couple shake-ups, switch-ups, depending on how well they're performing, what spots were actually open on the map, but now they got a little bit more comfortability there in that spot. Because Perhao is by himself, Ju is down, so a chance for a 1v1, but there are a few teams like Trulex and Chicho in the distance, and Perhao takes a big first shot before he even gets into position. It's Asta there on the other side, and he's baiting out the revive, and you can kind of keep it. You can hold these walls, revive at the same time, but not if some of those shots go through and land the elimination.
Asa is now put into panic as another duo comes by. Porhawa as well, choosing to try and disengage, but with the shots being connected, is Trulex going to follow on or try and take out Asa? They know he's a solo close by. They start breaking down the structures to try and kind of hunt him down, find him. As the threat continues for Asa, he's going to play for that initial shot.
Very gonna break it through the builds. It's only a combat. It doesn't deal that big punch like either the hammer or the gatekeeper. Mostly used for distance, which he doesn't have against Trulex and Chicho right now. Good thing enough, he's creating some, but Chicho's just hot on those heals. They see this as a free elimination. Some materials that they can add on top of what they have. But they're going on a wild goose chase, ringing around the Rosie, around the Nitro Dome for a little bit. They lost him.
Continue on the hunt, but for how long? As he's made the great escape now. I don't even know where he is. I'm trying to look on the mini-map, but I think it's that kind of purple marker down south of the Nitrodrome. So the issue is, even though he has made it out, I mean, I assume he has gotten the reboot card, so he'll have the potential to reboot, but it's going to be a long route to get back comfortably into the match. For Vico and Flixie, they have been fortunate enough to get the forecast tower this match, it seems. This is what they need, Jacob. I mean, they already have the momentum from the previous match, now alongside a forecast tower. This is scary for the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, especially since you kind of think about it for a second, like who's going to actually fight them for the forecast tower when it does spawn over there. Quickly going from edge to edge, coast to coast. Pablo and Bevies find themselves with a quick 3 eliminations. A good upgrade on that loadout, but a third party closing the distance. That's Chap and T3eny. Some of those fights might have been easy before, but I don't think it's going to stay that way against this team.
Another potential duel waiting to outbreak here as Chap and T3eny kind of crouch on in, looking for almost like a sneak attack, a 3-2-1, or even a double pump, if possible. Zoomed in. Now just a millisecond away from taking the shot. Connects, but doesn't do enough damage for the pressure to be on.
And T3eny's just taking a focus on the other side. He's able to get a knock onto one. Chap gets in here just in the nick of time to try to save the day, alleviate some of that pressure, and get some time here for T3eny to heal up. There's only so much this solo can do, because while he's trying to run away, you got a healthy Chap who's just going to go on the chase. Not too many teams land on the southwest portion of the map, so they're just so isolated. Chap and T3eny picking and choosing their fights wisely, and it's already working out because they have 3.
T3eny did a great job staying up there. He kind of got put into a box and dropped down to a sliver of HP, but being able to stay up allowed Chap to come in, finish the fight out from a different angle, still with a lot of HP and shield, and close it out. CZB now alongside Nathan, gonna pick up a couple. Nexi is gonna go down. 2 more eliminations, well, 2 total eliminations for this duo now.
And it seems like their game plan is kind of set forth when the zone does kind of slowly move down. Not when a drastic south pulls, but when it does give them some time to work with on the north side of the map. That's at least 2 out of the 3 games so far. They move towards the north, some even further towards Lavish Layer, but that's where they're looking to get their surge, fight some teams, and try to get their game started, because they are uncontested at Grand Glacier. It's not the easiest thing from over there, looting up and finding any teams to try to drop on.
Look how many duos are in kind of this underworld area of the map. I think I saw at least 4 or 5. Just kind of waiting for the time to play out, as Yanis has been left with Pixie here. Low on HP. Pressure's on them. The good news is it is one of the initial zones, so it's not ticking too much. They can afford to stay in here, but what they cannot afford is a big shot from Snazy or Podosai connecting.
Especially since they're fighting over at Brawler's Battlegrounds, so they got the loadout that they wanted, and they do know where a lot of those scraps are left behind. So the longer this one goes, I would think Snazy and Podosai might choose to disengage on out. Not a territory I would want to continue to stay in, as Janus continues to take some shots while trying to back up in his steps. Pixie's there, trying to go ahead and follow parallel to him. And like I said, Snazy, Podosai realizing even though the zone is here, we can't be too risky with our situation. We have to pick and choose our battles, and this might not be one we want to go after just yet.
Making use of that POI knowledge, getting a bit of bananas, so they can wait a bit longer before popping that med kit. Both duos now continuing to stay in zone. Look at each other, take those pop shots. Good news is there isn't any players directly out of the zone kind of looking at them, but the issue is they do have quite a ways to go to rotate on in. You can see kind of how this kicked off.
Wow. First couple shots being landed. Pixie cleans that one. Pyros is there. He gets boxed up. Interesting enough, the two teams contesting each other at Mount Olympus said, nah, we don't want to fight each other. And then they end up fighting everything together towards battlegrounds. And that's what happens when two teams employ the very, very similar strategy. One might have done it a little bit quicker, but the second one catches up and throws a wrench in the mix.
We'll go back to Underworld, though, with Ping and Wox. 100 points currently, holding their own on the leaderboard. They're currently in a basically three-way tiebreaker with Swizzy, Vanya, and Clown and Axe Force. Clown Axe Force having just one more point. So they kind of want to maintain that consistency to keep their name at the top. They don't really want to do anything too overly risky, even though they don't have any elims.
Wox and Ping, we saw them kind of make it far in one of our previous games, but those are the situations you have to watch out for. They're staggering themselves so far back into zone to where if it does come down to a heal off, even if they have 6 medkits, it lessens their chance due to the storm sickness. So you gotta be very, very careful. I mean, you know, they're just doing it because they need the surge. Prism and Casper, they have their plan split up. Prism just rotating around, trying to get scraps, upgrade the loadout a little bit, but Casper is well above, positioned on that mountain that almost looks like a skyscraper, builds a box on top of it, and is just trying to get shots on any of those teams, slow to rotate from Redline to Brawlers or anybody else that's using this path as a rotation.
Kind of like this setup. They don't have to use the initial mats to kind of make the frame of their surge base, but issue is the zone is going to pull away from them most likely now. They are on the edge of it. As we'll take a look at Predige and Radion. Looking to see if they can kind of make a comeback from that game 2 where they didn't get as many points as they would have wanted. We talked about not missing these opportunities you get to land these shots on players rotating around you. In grand finals, you don't get too many opportunities, so you have to capitalize on the ones you do get.
See a lot of players trying to prioritize their rotations just a little bit more. And some knowing even if the zone is far away, you saw that team that kind of just bounce padded out. They're just trying to get the scraps that might be left over from the bunker. But as Radion, you got to watch out for Desi and T-Chips. Perhawa just got taken out of the backside of zone, so it was looking a little bit more crowded in that area. But as Rift Island appears, you know as well as I do, there's a lot of teams that are making big statements about claiming that Rift Island. But it's up to those that actually go up and that are willing to make that risk that seem to be benefiting for them overall.
Malabuka and Murstache have been having a bit of trouble this time around. Meanwhile, we can see kind of the effect of the Slurp Cacti. We've had an average of damage required in the 7th zone to be 771 damage, Jacob, today. Okay, but last week in the semifinals, when the Slurp Cacti were active in 7th zone, it was 900 damage. From 771 to 900. So you can see you don't need to get as much damage, but it is more difficult to get that damage if you were using the Slurp Cacti strat before and you're not doing it anymore.
That's why when you look around at certain teams, it's all about the little moves you make throughout the course of the game, left instead of right, north instead of south. And the way some of these teams have practiced, you know, they kind of get used to zones pulling in one direction. So when we kind of get a mix-up here in a grand final style lobby, they kind of stick to their game plan and they switch up just a little bit later depending on what they're doing, how they're doing.
Thomas Crazy, once again in their base. Even though they do have a good line of sight of a lot of players rotating around them, they've still had trouble getting enough damage. We'll see if those 2 eliminations off the start, though, is going to change it up this time around. They're still doing their same surge strat, but now they just have a little bonus from that early game engagement.
I see Thomas and Queasy averaged 5th in the 4 FNCS finals they've played together. 46, a little bit of a slow start here in day 1 of the grand finals. But it's a team that I've said it before and I'll say it again, they have so much experience underneath their belt. I feel like they know how to react. They know how to change things up. Just want to see them kind of adapt just a little bit quicker. They started that here in game 3. They went for an early game fight towards Classy instead of just straight rotating toward the south. So this could be the game that they need to shake things up for themselves.
I'm going to look at the Gentleman Duo now, as they have more than enough ammunition to take shots at their opponents. All they have to do is land them. Looks like duo partner did get tagged a little, so it's going to be forced to use a big pot. Talked about it earlier now. If you do get tagged while you're looking for these shots, you are going to be forced to use your heals. You don't have that kind of free cactus you can use, so you got to be a little bit more conservative on how you're peeking and hunting for those openings.
Kind of standard business as usual. Good portion of the map littered with certain surge towers all around. And just because you have a surge tower doesn't necessarily mean you're getting all the surge in the world. It just ups that probability of you being able to not only spot somebody, people, but connect those shots as well. Because if nobody rotates near your surge tower, it's kind of all for nothing. It's T3eny and Chap. We saw them pick up a few eliminations already today. 590 above that damage threshold. So they're just kind of waiting, seeing what information they get throughout these next couple of zones. Do they have to rotate? Won't they? They even have the nitro ring there if they do need. They can position themselves near that and get ready for the next rotation. They're just giving themselves a lot of options to work with.
Second and third place already gone down in this match. Taking a look at how Vico and Flixie, our leaders, are currently looking. Good on damage, good on mats, good on loot, good on ammunition. Are choosing to do kind of a bit of a safer rotation, play it in zone. They have the heals to do so, the time to do so, and even the damage to do so. So I'm excited to see how they kind of set themselves up here for the later half of the end game.
Yeah, it's so early, they don't have to worry. Crash pads, Flowberry Fizz with the forecast tower. They're going to know how to get in there. Scroll is going to know how to get out. He gets taken down. That's one way you didn't expect to return back to the lobby. As for Zen, Gudenbrett, they get that elimination, but there was another team just north of them, and then another team north of that, and guess what? The zone pulls towards the north. The biggest blessing for them is they don't have the farthest pool in the lobby, so it's just all about timing of when you rotate.
Also, good news is no other duos decided to push them after that initial engagement. So once they cleaned it up, they had the freedom to pop those med kits, that Flowberry Fizz, recuperate all the HP and shield that they lost. As now we look at sort of a turtle war that's going around here. Mappy, with only 19 damage above the threshold, is going to be forced to kind of look for these shots, play it a bit risky. They have the shields to recuperate it, but with two different duos being on the opposing end of this box fight, it could even open an opportunity here for a third party. Yeah,
Yanis and Pixie were instantly getting sandwiched there. That was Mystic, Maxi. I saw them take a damage to Surge, so they really had no choice but the first team they saw. I was gonna save for a moment. Luckily enough, it was Yanis and Pixie who were distracted by Mappy and Kiro for that moment, but they quickly turned that thing around. No surprises for them because they're prepared at every single turn of this game.
Pixie and Yanis are gonna be the ones that truly got the upper hand in that situation, though. You can see how much damage it's put them at. Those two eliminations. Let's kind of see how it looked like from their perspective.
Oh, wow. Big first shot from Pixie. A little slow to rotate on out. He nitroed into the box, but that aim is what matters. Basically takes him down to one shot because of the earlier damage to Surge. And that's going to go ahead and alleviate them just a little bit. Almost 500 above the damage threshold.
Thomas is going to get knocked as well in the feed. Pixie now going to be forced to pop a Cola as he's almost lost all of his shield on this rotation. No more shields are in the inventory. It's all going to be up to Yanis if he has something to help him out later on. Just in the edge zone, this is where it starts getting chaotic.
It is Maxi on the other side. I can only imagine he's down on Surge yet again. These desperation plays are telling of the position that he's in, and he goes down. And goes down quickly at that. Focus and Belusi are next, trying to knock on that door. And that's just an interesting situation because now everybody's just stacked together. You see the mini-map, more than half of the teams on this side of the map with a max pull for everybody after these fights finish.
You got to be careful. Your edits, whatever you open here, it's instant danger for the opposing teams to kind of start taking shots on you. So you do have to be careful. I'd only do it if you were forced to because you didn't have enough damage done. Mappy did pick up a quick elimination, though. That's huge for this duo as they were just on the borderline of that Storm Surge threshold. You can see 5 above, but with this elimination, it's brought them right up to 100.
And that's just an interesting decision for a lot of these teams. You know, Storm Surge, before it was the cactuses. You dictated your game plan around that. Now Storm Surge is forcing a lot of these early game fights.
Take a look at Radeon. Now put into a risky situation as he gets knocked down. Pred left alone, 214 above. Is he going to crash pad his way into zone? Only 3 builds left. He's going to be forced here to try and stay up as long as possible. The issue is, if Malabuka and Merstash know that Pred is right above them in a cone, it could be free pickings. The good news for Predage, though, Merstash, Malabuka are going to continue with their rotation and see if they can make it up the hill.
Now I'm loving this team right now because, like I said, he was doing it almost all by himself in a couple of these games. Malabuka and Merstash throughout the qualifiers, they found themselves multiple times below that damage threshold. Now they have a huge strength in numbers. Momentum slowly but surely building on their side. And if you look at where they're at in zone, yes, this next rotation is going to describe a lot, but now they got themselves a lot of space between him and everybody else. His Mappy has no choice but to go in. He's trying to save his teammate. He did more than enough by the time, but it's Chap and T3eny underneath who finally cleaned that one up.
I have faith in Mappy here. He can close it out. He's going to be left as a solo, but we've seen this happen time and time again. He has more than enough resources to clutch it up. His duo partner's gone down. Well, let's take a look. It's 8th zone. 38 players are up. Let's see how long Mappy can last.
And he got some max mats, crash pads, flowberry fizz. Not sure where we're at in the nitro. He's going to be fresh out of that, but he's making sure that he has everything he needs, especially with the zone pulling back. He gets the med kits, chooses to go without the nitro because he has his bets hedged in that flowberry fizz crash pad combination.
T3eny gonna continue taking some shots, seeing how they can get the rotate in. Crash pad is looking like the correct idea here. Flowberry is gonna be popped to give them that initial momentum and height boost for their rotation. Clean rotate on in. Yanis Pixie, similar situation. Both duos now going to make it in. Vico and Flixie, though, still a little ways to go. Yeah,
this is looking like a game where a lot of our more known names, the juggernauts that are regulars here on the region, all getting stacked up here, having the best chance to make it to endgame. Vico and Flixie, once again, moving towards the front side of the zone. They play a lot of these low ground layers early on, and they wait to take it if that opportunity presents itself. But another team positions themselves in front. That's Chap, T3eny. They're trying to make it hard, and they sandwich out Vico and Flixie as two teams start to take notice.
They know how many duos could be dropping on top of them with their crash pads. They have to be cautious on which angles they do decide to open up. But so far, they've done a great job at exactly that. Chap and T3eny going to choose to build up a little bit as they've seen that they have pulled this 9th zone. It's going to pull right back towards Reckless.
Yeah, now they have the option. They can stagger themselves back. They can focus on maintaining their position above. It is 9th zone, though. Might be too early for some, but they are going to have a chance to look back, just like I said. All these teams flying through the sky. Crash pads are not. They're going to be a simple target for them. But these players are actually shooting back, and they're landing a lot of damage on the Chap and T3eny. Multiple teams are doing just that. Some even position themselves above them. Swizzy, Vanya are one of those, but they're 33 below the damage threshold, and they're quickly looking on the hunt.
Are they going to choose to take it? They see some options down below. It's Chap and T3eny. He takes the initial shot, 85. It's going to be more than enough to put Swizzy in a safe situation. Vanya doing the same at different angles. They know they need a bit of damage, and they've gotten it.
Yeah, especially with everybody, his tagging players shooting shots all around him. It's hard to get focused and notice that it is above you, but they quickly get onto that one, just like Swizzy, Vanya. They're trying to rotate on out. They take a lot of damage on their way there, but they're doing good because they've elevated themselves a low from that chaos that's down below.
Double Flowberry. It's going to recuperate all of the shield, but it's going to be Merstash and Malabuka taking shots at the team that's currently holding on to height. It's Chap and T3eny. But with T3eny getting cracked, Malabuka and Merstash know that they might get an opportunity soon.
Yeah, very, very healthy in materials, though. Gotta make sure Malabuka and Merstash stay that way if they want to contest it late in the game as they're scrambling around towards the front side of the zone, giving themselves opportunity and time to look back. One player is going to get past, but Pink's going to have to go ahead and choose a whole nother rotation if him and Walk's want to find safety past Malabuka and Merstash.
Height's going to be difficult this game. There's so many duos that are up that do tend to try and take it later on in the end game, but look at how many builds Chap and T3eny are putting down to secure it. Vico is going to be split up from his duo partner, now forced to switch layers, has no materials, needs to find an impact.
You see they're just trying to use the crash pads, they're trying to break into boxes, catch anybody off guard, and Swizzy's the one they found, but another player moves to the backside of the zone. Everybody is running out of builds, they're forced to recycle, and that ends in this type of congested layers at the bottom. It is so messy, it's muddy. I don't know if anybody can pick up their feet one after another other than Malabuka or Merstash, who are looking to dominate the low ground.
call the cleanup crew. Malibuka Merstash gonna pick up all that extra loot from the chaos down below. Now with the option to go on ahead of zone, play the front side, and continue throughout this late game.
Yeah, they're looking stacked like pancakes right now. Any team that even gets close, Malibuka or Merstash, just push them off, whether they get the elimination or not. Another player's gonna feel the pain of that one as they continue on. T3eny's forced to drop down. Chap's the one staying up. T3eny has to play Disruptor. Chap's out of builds and he's running out very, very quickly. If he stayed up above, they would have been long gone. And this is their chance now to retake and reclaim that high ground. They have 5 eliminations, a lot of resources being recycled and siphoned off of any player they took down.
T3eny did a great job dropping down to refresh on his materials. Merstash, Malibuka are both looking healthy, though. This is going to be the prime threat for the duo up on high ground if they're able to get out of this situation.
Vanya by himself. We just saw T-Chips go behind that wall, and he's going to try to take advantage. Pieced off, but T-Chips is still there. Vanya has no other way to go. Zone's pushing him forward. Instead of fighting the fight, though, he knows we will meet again later in this same zone, but he goes down. T-Chips with a monster shot to take out Vanya and move himself into the top 3.
50 live for T-Chips, but he's not done yet. Merstash goes down. It's T3eny now cleaning up, keeping his duo strong. That's the second elimination. Malibuka is the last player left in zone. How many medkits does he have is the question.
Hopefully he has a bunch, because he needs to outlast the rest of this one closing. One left in the inventory. He knows he has to crash pad towards the front if he wants any hope at this one. T3eny, Chap, they go ahead and aim at the sky, and Malibuka falls down from above. They take a huge win, and they take it by force.
Second place for Malibuka Merstash. Chap and T3eny gonna be the ones securing the victory royale. They held height for a majority of that late game. You can see how having so many materials paid off. They were able to show the dominance from above, apply the pressure when they needed it most, and T3eny dropping down to replenish those mats in the last moving zone to keep the dominance going. What a way to finish it off.
Yeah, I was looking a little risky when they finally dropped down, but it was for good reason. T3eny separating the Malibuka Merstash duo. T-Chips, we knew he had just a sliver of HP left, and whether they had the med kits or not, Chap and T3eny had all the time in the world to follow the zone, knowing, hey, you're either gonna have 6 med kits or you're gonna have to fight us for the game.
I honestly thought one of the opposing duos was going to contest them. Swizzy, Vanya looked like they had the option to, but then one of them went down, had to play as a solo. Malibuka Merstash put into a similar situation, and overall, Chap and T3eny closed it out. Before we go back to the desk, we are going to go to a quick break, and then we'll get right back to check out that leaderboard, so don't go anywhere.